Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back on the first of the updates 1.93 dev servers, and it's time to have a look at the Centurion Action X. This is a new premium which is coming to the British ground vehicle tech tree in updates 1.93. It's coming in at 6.7 and it has a lot of interesting stuff to it. Being rank 4 means that it's going to be useful for grinding rank 5 and below, so you can get some pretty decent research through the British tech tree. You could pretty much bypass all of the 6.7s, even though it is a 6.7 itself and does fit really well into a very already strong 6.7 lineup, along with the Centurion Mark III, the Carnarvon, and if we just look at the aviation side of things as well, you have access to, of course, the F Mark 24, which is a wonderful aircraft, along with the Hornet at 5.7, which also fits inside of it. So the Centurion Action X is a conglomeration of different ideas. The first one is, of course, the Centurion. This has a Centurion chassis. It's kind of as simple as that. So that stays the same. And then if you have a look at the turret is what eventually became of the FV4202. So this is what the turret morphed into, a much lower version with decent armor around what would be classed as the mantlet area, I suppose. But the Centurion Action X has a much more pronounced front, but it still has a lot of armor around it. And hopefully this means at 6.7 it's going to be able to actually ricochet some shells, and if not, then it's going to be in a situation where it still has a lot of nice little things to it which will make it competitive. The fact that it has the 20-pounder on it means that it has a 2-plane stabilizer, and at 6.7, where a lot of machines still don't have stabilizers, that can mean a lot of times with the Centurion Action X you're going to get the first shot off, which is incredibly important in War Thunder. You can also see where all of the rounds are stored, just all over the place, higgledy-piggledy at the bottom, with the first stage ammo storage only being 8 rounds, and since this thing has a really good reload rate, you can get through that pretty quickly, so you do have to watch out for that. The weapon reload, its base is 8.19, and it can get down to 6.3 seconds if you have an ace crew, so this thing can pump out the damage over time. The problem, though, as many a British tanker has talked about for many years, is the actual not the penetration, but the post-penetration effect of some of the rounds that the Centurion Action X has access to. So you basically have two ideas. You have the APC-BC, which is your AP round. It does a decent amount of damage. It also has a good projectile mass to it, but it doesn't pen as much as the APDS, which pens up to 285, 261, 109 respectively, and goes at 1400 meters per second, where the Shot Mark 1 only goes at 1000 meters per second and pens 232, 186, 79. So a lot of people will default to the APDS just because of the fact that it pens more, but understand that the damage can be very light. And at 6.7, you have a bracket of vehicles which are incredibly strong, and probably it's the crowning part for these types of vehicles, and it's the heavies. You got stuff like the T-34, T-29, the T-30, then of course the Super Pershing. For the Germans, the Tiger IIs, the Tiger II-H is always going to be omnipresent when it comes to this area of the game. For the Soviets, if you get up tiered, you see the IS-3. If you get down tiered, you see the IS-2, which is once again another one of these weird and wonderful heavies. And also for other nations, you're probably going to see some in the future as well. But at least for the French, you got a bunch of auto-loady boys which will run around circles around you. So against the French, the British are actually really good. Against some of the heavies, where sometimes when you penetrate with the Shot Mark III and it doesn't do any damage, not so great. And looking at the protection analysis, just looking at the armor for a second, we can actually compare it to what I would still class as a meta vehicle. So let's just do the Tiger II-H. We'll have a look at its standard round, which is the one that you use, the APC-BC, to see where we can pen this thing. So the upper glacis, it's only 167, so you can go straight through and batter anything that you feel like. Of course, with the ammunition here, if you aim for the right, it'll set it off and blow up the whole vehicle, so make sure to do that. If they don't have ammunition there, which they shouldn't do, because of the fact that you shouldn't be taking that much ammunition in this thing, if you fire for the left-hand side, you will hit the driver, the ammo, and also the gunner behind. So this is the kill shot, and it always will be on this style of machine, because you can get 2 in 1 in the form of the gunner and the driver. Low glacis is 162, upper is about 175, and the turret itself, you can see, even though it has this interesting turret, it's not looking great. So around the breach, it's 187. So the Tiger 2 and pretty much everything else can pen you at there. 115 on the right hand side for some reason on the cannon breach. The places where I want to point out is the general turret cheeks where you would be firing. So straight at the gunner, right? If we're firing for the gunner, it's only 150 millimeters worth of damage. But if we fire in this area up here, it's always, or it's most of the time going to ricochet, into space. But then, if you fire in this area, there's only 10 millimeters worth of penetration there. That is where the gun is, and it actually goes straight through and will kill a bunch of people. So, that's another interesting little kill shot if you can get your round to go off. If you have HE maybe, with a little bit of penetration, like the SPRG you've got here, if you can get it into that slot there, it may be able to go off if you're really, really hoping it does, but it's going to be a toughie. Just take the AP. It's much easier for you. So using that, the only place where your armor really holds up is this bit. And you shouldn't really be shooting here. And even if you want to shoot here, you can shoot right at the top and it'll ricochet and hit him. Or what will happen, which is happens quite a lot, is you'll get shot here in the cupola and it will bounce down and kill everyone like that. So the armor is useless on this thing, if we're quite honest. But the thing is, because of the fact that it has that stabilizer, because of the fact that it has good turret rotation in the form of 15.2, which is good when you've got dual traverse on top of that, with the fact that it has 10 degrees worth of gun depression, you will be able to get the gun on targets and hopefully fired before the enemy can shoot back. And that's what you have to do with this machine. The side armor is only 6 millimeters, at least on the external parts. On the internal, 50, then 89 on the turret, and also 98 here. The booty is only 38, and the top is 29. So the top being 29 is actually really important for the turret, because since it's 29, it's not easily pennable from your standard cannon. What you'll have to do is go a little bit higher with something like a Pulkestorer to be able to annihilate it. But the 30 millimeters on top of the engine deck as well is really nice for that fact as well. So at least from the air, this thing will be kind of covered. It is sad that it doesn't have a top MG on it. It's an unfortunate thing for a lot of British vehicles. It seems like we just didn't believe in the top mounted gun. Instead, what you have is the 792 Besser, which is sat in a very awkward position to basically try and, what looks like, keep this front of the turret whole. So yeah, I'm not really sure about the position on the gun, but it is how it is. 12 smoke grenades as well for survivability is really nice, and also it has a 650 horsepower engine, which is mounted here in the center. And what you have access to is a transmission, which will give you 35 forward and 12 back, which is not great, but it's good enough at the level that it is at. Customization options are the same for it as every other, British vehicle at this tier, and you get access to some really nice camouflages if you are in a British vehicle. So there's that to look forward to. You got the LLMA camouflage, which is the one we're going to be rocking today. The European camouflage, of course, the winter ones as well. So that is something to have a look for. Then in the test drive, I can show you why, at least for me, when I think about vehicles like this, I am, it gets me a bit happy. So the British have a really strong 6.7. Cent Mark III, Carnarvon are two really good vehicles. And you also have the STRV along with them, the 81, which... oh, damn it. So, yeah. Why does that not line up? Like, it kind of lines up, but it doesn't line up. That's weird. So with the 6.7 lineup for the British, you have a really nice set of medium tanks. You've got the Cent Mark III, the Carnarvon, which is labelled a heavy, but it's not really a heavy. It's more of a, You know, it's more of a medium tank in its playstyle. And then you've got some cool tank destroyers, you know, the Tortoise, the Barn, all of these things. So to add another medium tank, which can either replace the Cent Mark III because it's got a little bit better armor on it, or can go in place of your third vehicle, which would be a tank destroyer or some form of AA, I think is a great pick. You know, it's a nice thing to add to this already stellar British, you know, 6-7 lineup. Now the thing is, it doesn't really bring anything new. So when we talked about the Vickers Mark VII, what was nice about it is that it brings a bit of speed to top tier for the British, brings a little bit of dynamic gameplay. Whereas this, if we really want to boil it down, what is really the difference between this and something like a Cent Mark III? Not really a lot. So from a premium point of view, in my opinion, that's great. You know, because you are not technically paying for power, you're not paying for something that is going to be massively better than the machine that is in the tech tree. But at the same time, what does this offer that you can't get in the tech tree? Apart from a third, you know, a third MBT. And you can see you can go through the upper glacis of Tiger 2s, which is really nice with the Sabo. You can't do that with the AP, which is a bit of a problem with it. Good old just keep smashing it where it hurts. But you can see that 34 kilometers an hour is pretty much the max speed you're going to trundle along at. It does get to its max speed, which is really lovely, and at the same time it keeps the gun completely stable. The only issue you're going to have is turning. Sometimes you're going to have to wait to turn, so like this, and then, you know, be able to shoot some targets. The other thing as well is peeking. So for me, the reason why the British vehicles are strong is because you can always guarantee getting the first shot off if you're in an equal scenario. So if you have an enemy who is pushing you, you can pop out, he has to steady himself where you already are stabilized, because the majority of vehicles at 6-7 are not stabilized. So you are able to shoot before they are able to shoot you. And that's very important in War Thunder, especially when you know where to shoot, you know, aiming for the gunner or the driver or the ammunition, depending on what is best to do at that time. And all of these British mediums give you that option. They give you the option to be able to shoot first, and that is why a machine like this can be incredibly competent while playing. I wish I had a little bit more speed, but the speed is acceptable. But when I compare it to stuff which they've added recently, stuff such as the Italian little armoured cars, obviously the RU-251 being more of a legacy machine, and also some other machines as well, like the Jagdpanzer 4.5, having another machine which is just a tad slower than what would be nice to see in a meta vehicle is kind of annoying, but it's not the end of the world. It's one of those minor annoyances. It means that if you really need to push an advantage in a game, it's going to take you a little bit longer to do so compared to others. But it still has the turret, so you're not in a position where you're going to be stuck, you know, not being able to move or not being able to do anything like that. You are still able to move the turret around. I hope that the armor profile changes by the time it comes to the live server, just because I feel like this armor is just not good enough when it comes to the turret to be able to bounce anything. So maybe it gets a little bit more armor, just to give it a little bit of you know, chance to actually stop rounds coming in. But right now it is just basically a Cent Mark III. And premium Cent Mark III at that, which is always lovely to see. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, Jay Wilt, John Ryman, Joseph Anders, Martinez, Moxie, Super Cacti, Uyins Terry, Elove Goat, and Seductive Trash Can for supporting the channel.